All right, we are live. Wow. Okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm just checking over on YouTube. Let me check 1 second. We might get a little bit of feedback for a second here.
Okay.
Um, I think I'm just, oh, okay. Hang on. Over on. Yep. So we are live. Welcome. I'm really excited today to have Rashonda Trumbull with us. And we're going to be just covering a lot of ground, I think. And we'll see where the conversation goes. Really excited and
Okay.
grateful to have
Well,
you here.
I just realized something. I guess I need to put up because right now I'm looking at the StreamYard, but if people have questions, I guess I need to give me just a second because
Oh,
sometimes I can be
sure.
a dingbat. Um,
I think there's a way you'll see the comments come in too on the side. If you
really?
can pull up, yeah, if you can pull up a sidebar.
Hold
And
on.
while you're doing that, I'm going to introduce you.
Great.
And
Go ahead.
yeah, so Rashunda, she just caught my attention online, folks. I just got a sense of a really dynamic person, and I thought she could just have a lot to share with us. So Rashunda is the author, and she's a tarot reader, and her site is Stay Woke Tarot, which I love that name. So she's an author, a writer, and a tarot reader. She's originally from Memphis, Tennessee, but now she lives
Mhm.
in Switzerland. So that
Mhm.
really caught my attention. And she has a BA in film and an MA in creative media practice. And she's done
Yeah.
a lot in her career. We'll talk about that. She's a member of Mensa and a certified Reiki 4 practitioner. There's
Yeah.
more to her. I'm going to throw it to you, Rashonda, if you want to add any more, introduce yourself.
Okay. I did. You know what? I tried getting the YouTube up and I realized that
Let me see.
that I need to turn our live down for this to work, for me to see YouTube and to see what's going on in YouTube.
Oh yeah, you don't want to do that. Yeah, I'll put the comments up on screen because I can see them. So no worries.
Okay, so then you just tell me what they're saying because right now I'm just looking at the StreamYard. Okay.
Okay.
This is why I don't do YouTube lives. Don't have me doing it. It's like, yeah.
Oh, I
So
love lives. I love lives because I love very spontaneous. I always say I'd be a jazz musician. So whatever happens,
okay, all
I'm
right.
into.
Okay.
Who else is here? Just say hi in the chat. And yeah, Rashonda, do you want to add anything about yourself before we jump in?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. As you said, my name is Rashonda Tramble. I live in Switzerland, but I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee. I've been in Europe for about 22 years. I
Oh, I
am
didn't realize it was that long.
yeah, I moved here in 2001. Um, I am a tarot reader. I am an author, writer. Um, my background actually is in television and radio marketing and communication. So that's my background. I
Mhm.
think that's about I'm not sure you know, what else to put in there, but that's sort of the
Mhm.
basics. I'm sure folks will have questions as we
Yeah.
go along, but that's who I am, right? At least right now on Sunday, November 5th.
I hear you because we are evolving. And that's really also why I wanted to have you on. So I just clicked over to another tab briefly to my first question for you is really to tell us about your journey because I do think it's an unusual journey to sounds like you've had a big career, you've done a lot, and then
Mhm.
why Switzerland? So this is a place where you can share what you'd like with the audience and
Mhm. Mhm.
inspire them
Mhm.
to yeah.
Well, I mean, in terms of why Switzerland, to be very honest with you, I married a Swiss. We divorced, but I was married to a Swiss, and we moved here back in 2001. We
2001.
split. I got Swiss citizenship, which allowed me to stay. And they don't hand those out to everyone. Um,
I know
you
they don't.
know, yeah,
They
got a
really
job.
don't.
Right, got a job. I had a career here, and that's how and why I stayed. So yeah, that's basically it, and that's why I am here in Switzerland, and that's why I stayed because after my divorce, I rebuilt my life, and I just said, okay, I think I can make it here. Let me just go ahead and stay, instead of returning back to the States. Mhm.
Okay. When you were in the States at that point, where did you leave from? Were you a big city woman and then you went like what was your life in America before you went to Switzerland?
I was in Greensboro, North Carolina. I
Okay.
worked for actually, I worked for various radio stations, and then I worked for a TV station called WGHP
Mhm.
TV, which was a Fox O&O, a Fox owned and operated TV station. I know that I will probably have to balance out a whole lot of karma for that. Um, and that's what I was doing. I started out in radio actually when I was in Memphis, and what
Okay.
took me to Greensboro was a radio job, and I moved to Greensboro, worked in radio there, and then moved over to TV.
Mhm, mhm. So, and how did you meet your husband? Were you traveling?
No, he was traveling. He was visiting North Carolina. Both of
Oh,
us are members of Mensa.
mhm.
And we met through mutual friends, but yeah, there was sort of an exchange program between different chapters of Mensa, and they had these like hosting programs if you were traveling, and you could
Right. You
you
could like
know
connect with people
connect
and
with connect with
community.
fellow members in different places.
Mhm, mhm.
And the thing is, North Carolina has New Bern, North Carolina, and then you have Bern, Switzerland, which is the capital of Switzerland, and that's why there was a connection between North Carolina and Switzerland.
Are
Which
they're sister cities? They're
I
considered
believe
sister
they are.
cities?
I believe they are sister cities. Yeah, yeah. But that's
Oh.
why you have the connection between the Mensa chapters in Switzerland and
Mhm.
then the Mensa chapter in North Carolina.
Oh, interesting. You know, for folks who don't know what Mensa is, can you just give us an overview or just a
It
yeah.
is a society for supposedly people who are in who are in their IQs are in the top 2 percentile of the world if you take a standardized IQ test. I've
Mhm.
been a member of Mensa since I was 16 years old. Like
Wow.
off and on, but I qualified for Mensa when I was 16.
Wow.
And yet supposedly you are a genius. For example, Isaac Asimov, I believe, was a member of Mensa, and all of these,
Some other
um
like some
yeah,
well-known
yeah, yeah. So
communities.
I'm a certified nerd.
No, I like nerds. What do you guys
Mm.
think? And say hi and also do share where you're viewing from, especially if you're new. Okay. Just introduce yourself here so we can get a sense of, and questions as well, we're going to
Yeah,
take. So, okay. So that's how you met. You met here in the US. But I
right.
guess the question would be so, yeah, what is your life like in Switzerland? And then also leading into the next question, you can, take it however you'd like, but how do you maintain your balance, emotional well-being, living abroad, living in a foreign country, and just adapting to that?
Um, I think I've been here for so long, it's slightly
Mhm.
difficult to say how it is living here in Switzerland because, again, I've been here for like 21, 22 years.
Right, right.
When I got here, remember, it was completely different than what it is now. When I got here, there were not too many, or I didn't encounter too many Black Americans here,
Mhm, mhm.
which was pretty interesting. You could count us, on the palm of your hand.
Mm,
So then there was that, and just getting used to things here, and just the big and the small.
okay.
Big things as in you know dealing with racism here in Switzerland back in 2000, which, I mean, I could tell you things that happened and you'd be like, what the hell? Or the expat life in terms of getting used to the fact that
Yeah.
the post doesn't pick up mail at your house. And it was at one point I kept sticking you know how you stick the mail in your post box for the mail
Yes.
person to pick
And it's
up.
supposed to take
And I
it, yes.
kept doing it and kept doing it and never picked it up. And I didn't know what the issue was. And then finally I was told you have to go to the post office and put your mail there. They do not pick it up.
Huh.
So it ran the gamut. In
Some
terms
little
of,
things, like that sounds like a trivial thing. Tell us some of the things that might have been a little bigger.
well, trivial is relative because depending on the day you have, something that could be trivial to you could be what
Right.
was the straw that breaks the camel's back. So I'm sort
True,
of, yeah,
true.
I'm sort of, in terms of trivial, it really depends. Um,
Mhm, mhm.
I mean, things like, I'm trying to think back to 2001. The
Or
fact
the
that
first
if
few
you're looking
years,
for a
I would
job,
think.
the fact that if you're looking for a job, you
Mhm.
must, on your CV or your resume, you must put your picture on it.
Oh, okay,
That
that's
is a
the standard.
requirement.
Oh, it's a
Just that's a standard. That's, and in the US, that's not something we do. But
Mhm.
in Switzerland and in other parts of Europe, that is something that you must do. You cannot you cannot apply for a job without putting your picture on it on the
Oh,
on a
wow.
CV, which leads to a whole bunch of other things, you know.
Sure, sure.
Um,
Yes.
so there's that, and just really things that you have to get. I mean, you don't have to get used to, but things that you have to expect living in
Yes.
a foreign country.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Was your husband helpful in that sort of assimilation to a foreign country? Because I mean, that's gonna happen in any country, right? But, I
Exactly,
mean,
it's going to happen in any country.
mhm,
Up
yes.
to a point. I mean, my ex-husband.
Right, yes.
I have, yeah,
Husband.
I've remarried. Yeah, I've remarried, but he, up to what he could. Um, and what he could do. And, nothing against him, but there were things that, I wasn't prepared for and he wasn't prepared for either,
Right,
coming back over here.
mhm.
So that was another thing. But, it gets to the point where you you have to make a decision of, okay, I need to just either learn how to roll with it.
Right.
Um, some things you accept, some things you don't accept, and then, you just put one foot in front of the other.
Yes, yes, of
Yeah.
course.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
So then how did you, because my channel is so much about
mhm.
spirituality, meditation, mindfulness, what practices or what did you put in place to help you adapt then or now,
Mhm, mhm.
to a very
Uh-huh.
different culture? I would, and maybe you can tell us some of that because we're not, most people are not. I mean, as we talked about in our pre-discussion, people think Tina Turner, and you and I, that's a very different life than the average woman
Mhm.
of any race, but American moving to Switzerland or trying to move to Switzerland. It's a very, her life and who she was is very different, but you know, to move to Switzerland. It's sort of a country I don't think we know a huge amount about. So just sort of, yeah, share what you think might be helpful to us in terms of understanding. Yeah, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, it's it's really, I'm trying to begin where in terms of
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
in terms of my emotional balance and all of that. I will say one thing I do have in common with Tina
Mhm.
Turner is Buddhism. Um,
Okay.
and chanting. I sort of split. I'm split between Soka Gakkai, which is, I was Soka Gakkai in the U.S., but also I do follow Thich Nhat Hanh. So you could say
I
that there was
see.
like I have a combination of that.
Mhm.
Um, I
Mhm.
think one thing I really focus on is the impermanence of life, and that the only thing that is constant in life is change. And
Right.
when we talk about emotional balance, what I had to really realize is that um, I'm not my emotions. I
Mhm.
have emotions, but I
Mhm.
am not my emotions. And
Yes.
what really helped me was, a combination of, chanting, but also meditation and
Yes.
realizing the way to stay in the middle. And that's where we want to be, where there is no life, no death, where there is, people talk about, oh, I want a stress free life. And there's no such thing as that. There's no such thing as a stress-free life. Life
Mhm.
is life. You cannot have happiness without some type of sadness or some type of stress. You cannot have some type of stress without some type of happiness. All of that comes, it's together. And I think, looking back, where I was in just sort of, really horrible life states, especially here in Switzerland, was when I was attaching myself to this one thing. Oh, I have to be happy, or attaching myself to something that had happened to me.
Right,
I
right.
don't downplay trauma at all.
Mhm.
I have been through, I could tell you things that I've been through that if I chose to share with you, you would look at me like, well, how the hell did you make it through that? And I don't like doing that because I'm not into trauma porn, and that's what I call it.
It's
I
okay.
don't, I
Trauma
just,
porn. Okay.
yeah, because sometimes you get so caught up in the trauma and you get into this whirlpool
Right,
that that's all
right.
you see.
Spin. A spin.
You just start
Absolutely.
spinning in it. And so I had to say to myself, I am not my trauma. And the things that
Mhm.
happen to me, like, if the trauma is stemming from something that you've done, that's one thing. And that's something that you need to work through. But if the trauma, and this is me, I
Mhm.
don't know if this will work for anyone else, but what happened with me is that I got to the point where the trauma that I had experienced that came from somebody had done something or whatever, I had to
Mhm.
say to myself, why am I carrying something that I didn't do? If anyone needs to feel guilty, it needs to be the son of a bitch that did whatever they did to me. So
Mhm.
why am I carrying something that this person should be carrying because they're the ones who did it?
Mhm.
And I
Right,
had to
right,
really, that's where I had to, sort of, I had to say that to myself because for me to carry that trauma, I was doing the work that that other person or those other people should be doing. And I
right.
don't do that.
Right, right.
I'm not going to be somebody else's trauma mule or something and do the
Wow.
work that they should be doing. And I had
Right.
to get to that point. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
the other thing is I had
Mhm.
to um, ask myself, in terms of the trauma and the anger that I was feeling, what part of it was personal trauma and personal anger, and what other part was generational? And Buddhism really helped me with that because I was at Plum Village this April, and
Oh,
Plum
wow.
Village it's in France, and it's where Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Zen Buddhist monk, that's actually where he started his movement in Europe.
Right.
And I had a very good meeting with Sister Chong Kong, who was the co-founder of the Plum Village tradition. And I went to her and I said, look, I've got all this anger in me, and my life actually is pretty good.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but I'm still angry for some reason. And she was
Mhm.
the one who said, you know what? That may not be your personal anger. That's that generational anger. You're feeling the
Wow.
anger of your ancestors, of the people who were kidnapped. And this is like an 80-year-old, 80 some odd
Asian woman.
Vietnamese woman who's
Vietnamese.
breaking it down
Mhm.
to me. And she said,
Right.
your
Right.
people were kidnapped, raped, slaughtered, you know, brought over to a land that wasn't theirs. And that gets passed down. And so that's what you're feeling. And
Mhm.
so I think that's another thing that when we start, when we say we are feeling this trauma or these emotions or whatever it is, maybe say, okay, is this really connected to something?
Mm.
Can I, pinpoint it to an act or this or an event? Or is it something that's really, really deep down inside? Um, and if I can't really kind of pinpoint it, that may be the generational anger and the generational trauma.
Right. Wow. That is really deep. Yeah, that I mean, well, certainly as a Vietnamese woman, she saw her nation go through, I mean, she
Mhm.
lived through that, right? Because she said she's in her
Yes.
80s. So,
Yes. Yes.
through the
Yes.
Vietnam War, what we call the Vietnam War. Apparently, this stunned me. Apparently, they call it the American War, which of course makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Call it
Yeah.
the Vietnam War. Right, right, right. Wow. I want to pause here for a second and just as some new folks have come in. So I'm talking to Rashunda Trumbull, and she lives in Switzerland, and she is a tarot reader, but broader than that. She's a writer, had a career in media, TV and radio. And we're just talking. So if you're just joining, because I know you're just in the middle of like, oh, they're talking about trauma, what's going on? So I just wanted to give you that again, because folks do, they drop in, they drop back out. So let me just check here. So Lydia, Lydia has, would you like to take her question? Let me see.
Lydia is asking, are there ways that you can share how you released this anger, released or realized?
Released.
Realize this anger that was yours. Release this anger that was yours and also not yours. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I won't sit up here and say I've released everything.
Right. Oh, do you want me to go back?
Huh?
Do you want me to go back to her question? Okay, I'll put it
No,
back.
No, I see it. I see it. I think the first thing was the meditation. I did a lot of meditation, the in-breath and the out-breath, which made me a little bit more sensitive to the feelings. I think my personal trauma, I could trace it.
Okay. Yeah.
The personal, you can kind of say, yeah, right around when I was 7 or 6 or whatever, and this happened, and I could kind of trace it with that.
Right.
The generational, that feels more like visceral. If I can like pinpoint a section of my body or something, would be like in here. Now, in terms of releasing it, as you say, the personal trauma, I talked a little bit about that before, because that came with the chanting, that came with the meditation.
Chanting practice. Yeah. Well, I'm going to stop you there because not everybody, like I know that the Nam
Myoho Renge Kyo.
Yeah, not everybody knows that. So maybe just
Nam Myoho Renge Kyo is what it's in Nichiren Buddhism, and it's what Tina Turner practiced. Because people joke and say, "Yeah, that's a Tina Turner Buddhism," and it's. I mean, in a nutshell, it is like a mantra that you chant, and supposedly it helps you balance out your karma. It helps with the karma of past generations, working with the family karma and all of that, and it also helps you release some things as you were doing the chanting. So
and that is
right. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. You do that. Tina Turner, before maybe about 2 years before she passed, put out a wonderful book called Happiness Becomes You. And she goes through her entire process of, when she was going through this, when she was dealing with her ex-husband and all of this, and how she used that practice to work through that anger and that sadness. So that's one way. I highly recommend that book. In terms of the Plum Village tradition, the in-breath and the out-breath, I do that meditation. I try to do it every morning for at least 5 minutes, where I just come back into myself. I breathe in, I know I'm breathing in, I breathe out, I know that I am breathing out, just to be center and in the present. So in terms of that trauma, I get back to where I say, I am not my trauma. So I can release it. That's what I do. Does that work for everyone else? Try it. Well, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. The other thing is, I will say my tarot practice does help. I've been reading tarot for about, I've been saying 25 years for a long time. So probably even longer than 25 years. I started reading tarot actually.
Lydia says, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I started reading tarot like way back when I was working for the TV station. But
can you share that story? Could you share that story? Could you share that story? Because I just think it was I really believe in, like, some things are meant to be, like how you got into tarot. Because I don't think you're the typical, when we think of a tarot reader, you're not the typical idea I think that people would have. So do you want to share that story of how you came
I'm
across?
gonna say
And
the
that might be
those who go wait, when you say typical, I will say this. The folks who scream the loudest are the ones who get the attention. So
yeah.
you may think typical because those are the ones who, I don't know, they have their get-ups or whatever, which is fine, which is what they want to do, and that's great.
And they're on
Um,
TikTok maybe. I don't
they're
know.
on
I don't think they're
exactly, they're on TikTok and doing all that, and God bless them. I, wish them well. But the way I started, way I started was when I was working for, I was a reporter for the TV station, and I was given this story of, I had to do a story on people who do alternative
alternative.
spiritualities and this and all of that, whatever you call alternative. And
Mhm.
I I had an interview with a Reiki practitioner, but she also read tarot, but she would not allow me to interview her until she read my cards. And so
Mm,
she did a reading, and I was really interested. I was like, okay, this isn't the, what I thought it would be. And the other thing is, if you had
yes.
looked at this person, she wasn't typical either.
Mm.
She was like someone's grandma. And that's why I say, and she was she didn't advertise that much,
Mhm.
but
Okay.
folks kind of knew of her. So I think that, having that first experience with her, with
Mhm.
someone, who was just like grandma, come on in, like in the Matrix,
Yes, I
the
remember that.
Oracle.
Matrix 1, Matrix number 1, right, the first one, right? Or no,
Right, with the Oracle,
yes, the
grandma with the cookies, and Gloria, the name was, I cannot remember the actress's name, but Mary Alice played her after she passed.
Mhm.
It was more of that. And
Mhm.
so after that, I got a deck of cards for the story. I decided to keep the cards, and then I just started going from there. I would read for myself, and then I would read for friends.
Mhm.
And I finally got to the point, one of my friends said, you really should start doing this professionally. And
Mhm.
I studied with a woman named Katrina Wynn, um,
Okay.
read up. I did a lot of, you know, just deep diving and educating myself. And then that's what happened. I started reading professionally.
Mhm.
So getting back to what I was saying is that what also helped me was working with tarot, because at least in the major arcana, you
Mhm.
know, all of the characters, all of the cards follow archetypes. And
Mhm.
sometimes we need something to help us get out of our heads, whether it's a deck of tarot cards or runes or an oracle deck or chicken bones or whatever it is. But we
Mhm.
need something that's going to get us out of our heads so we can examine what's going on, and to answer, if we can, the question of why. Why do I think this way? Why did I do this? What type of programming have I had? What type of imprint did my folks give me that I started behaving in this particular fashion? And is that what
Mhm.
I want for my life?
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. Wow. Yeah, so the tarot was a tool, and you said probably about 30 years now you've been
It's
from
been
when you
about,
began.
mhm,
Yeah.
I want to say, I'm calculating. I'm 53. So it's been about, I'll say 28 years. Yeah. Hmm.
Wow. With the
Hmm.
tarot, yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, a random question, do you have any favorite decks that you could name
Um, oh,
or that
goodness.
you
Right
use?
now, I mean, it really depends. I normally use just a normal Rider-Waite Smith.
Okay.
I do use variants of that. The Tazama African Tarot is a beautiful deck that I highly recommend. I mean, if you Google, you can find it. It's a
Could
gorgeous
you
deck
spell
that is
that?
beautiful.
Could you spell that?
Tazama, Tazama, African Tarot. It is a deck from a wonderful couple, an Afro Dutch couple out of the Netherlands.
Mhm.
It's Tazama African Tarot, Abusuapa. I think that's the name of their, that not pronouncing it correctly. That's the name of their publishing company. It is a
Mhm.
gorgeous collage deck
Mhm.
that is based on either postcards or images from the 1800s and before of African kings, queens, guards, all you name it, and the deck is
Mhm.
gorgeous. So I
Okay.
highly recommend that, and that's a Rider-Waite Smith based deck.
It is still a okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
I was gonna use the word clone, but not that it's literally that close, but it's
It's a
using
system, yeah.
yeah.
It's that particular system. It uses that, yeah. Hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Which I find helpful. It's helpful if it does have, for most people. Can
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
say a bit about now your website, where folks can find you is Stay Woke Tarot. Now, have you had like when did you name it? Like how does that kind of and I know do you get positive feedback on the name or do people kind of I don't know. Tell us a little bit about that, about Stay Woke Tarot.
Um, yeah, Stay Woke Tarot. I named it back in 2016. And the reason
2016.
why, yeah, the reason why I did that was a couple of things. The first thing is that, I loved Erica Badu's song "Master Teacher." And "I Stay Woke." That was one of the refrains in
Mhm.
there, and that's one thing. The other thing was I was also a huge fan. Well, a couple of reasons. I was a huge fan of School Days,
Mhm.
and the final scene in School Days where I cannot remember Lawrence Fishburne's character at the end, but when he is running through the campus saying wake up, he's waking everyone up, and it's about
Mhm.
remaining aware and knowing what's
Mhm.
going on.
Mhm.
The other inspiration was a a speech from Dr. King,
Mhm.
where I think it's called "Staying Awake During the Revolution,"
Mhm.
and I think he delivered that, I think, at Riverside Church in New York. I'm not exactly sure, and that
Mhm.
may have been
Mhm.
1965. But
Mhm.
he talked about how Rip Van Winkle went to sleep, and how, like, when he went up the mountain to go to sleep, and when he went up the mountain, he saw a placard or something on a pub, and I think it had King George or someone. And so he went up the mountain, went to sleep, and then when he came back down, the placard had been changed to George Washington or something like that. But the thing was, Rip Van Winkle was asleep during this entire revolution.
Mhm.
So you have that, and then there are also other instances of the term "stay woke" being used, even in a blues song back in, I believe, in the 1930s or so. So the phrase
Wow.
has been around for a long time.
Mhm.
It's not something that's new.
Mhm.
And to all the folks out there, especially white folks that are out there saying, "Oh, stay woke is new," and how could you do that? Just because you've only just heard of it doesn't mean it's new. And that's what I tell a lot of folks when they say, "Oh, you're getting on that stay woke train." It's like, no, the phrase has been around for
Right.
God knows how
They're
long.
assuming you jumped on it just based on their own
They
recent,
assume, yeah, they assume that I jumped on it very recently, and it's like, no. But the other thing is,
Mhm.
to be honest with you, I don't explain anymore.
Sure, sure.
I
Mhm.
don't. I mean, I've had people, if they say something or whatever. I mean, the last time I explained something to someone really other than this,
Yes.
like for a comment, was probably about maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Sure, sure.
But I just
Well,
don't.
folks aren't gonna yeah, no, no, no. I mean, we don't want to assume. I think that the whole group of people who might ask probably wouldn't have landed on your website and wouldn't be
That's
drawn
what
to
I'm saying.
you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
you
if someone, I mean,
it's
not to the people here, but if
yeah, of
someone,
course.
if someone emails me asking, "Oh, where'd you get that name from?" It's like, you're
Yeah,
not, you know what? You're
yeah,
eh,
yeah, yeah, of course.
yeah, life is short.
I know. I think I heard you mention it though in something I was reading about you. So that's what I
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
thank you for
Hmm.
sharing that broader
Hmm.
perspective, of
Hmm.
course. Um, and so yeah, you read for people around the world,
Yeah.
right?
I,
Is
I
okay.
read for people around the world. If people are interested in getting a reading from me, you can book on my site.
Mhm.
I also have a newsletter. You can sign up for my newsletter. You can sign up for that on my site, because I release open slots on a month by month basis. So if you go to my site and you see like, oh, she doesn't have any openings, it means just hold on. Next month I'll have something. But I've just listed my my openings for November. Also, you can buy my book, The Numinous Tarot Guide: A New Way to Read the
Do
Cards, that
you
came
have
out
a
in
copy of it?
2021.
You probably don't have a copy of it by you. Could you hold it up if you do? That's something I should have asked. I'm so visual. It's just nice to see
I
the
hold on a
cover.
second. I do have a copy. Hold on.
Sure, absolutely. Um, yeah, the
So there's a
numinous.
book. It is available. I mean, of
It's
course, it's
beautiful.
available online if you do Amazon, but please support independent bookshops. If you
Yeah,
contact your favorite independent bookshop and just ask them to order it, they will be
they
able to
will.
get this. They can get this in. So
Yes,
you could,
yes.
I mean, do it that way. Bookshop, support bookshop. Biblio, you can get it on Biblio. So there are a lot of other ways of getting this book than using Amazon.
Than just Amazon. Then the
Right.
easy way.
Mhm.
Than the easiest way. Yes, I have a local bookstore that loves to, yeah, they will
Mhm.
order, they will find anything for you.
Mhm,
Yeah, we do
mhm,
need to
mhm,
support them.
mhm.
Um, yeah. Any questions? Any questions, comments, any of you who've joined? I really like that one from Lydia, just in terms of the emotions, because I think that led us. Silverhead, do you have any questions for Rashunda? And I'm doing some technical thing here. Let me pull up. Let's see. Oh, we've got, hi, John. How are you? Welcome, welcome. And Monica had said hello before, and BB. I just think it was really powerful when you talked about really meeting with the nun at who now, I guess she's runs or is like the spiritual head of Plum Village.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
is. She's a
Yeah.
spiritual head.
Yeah.
She's a
And
spiritual head, yeah.
I think I knew he did start that with a nun in France. And so people can visit and do a retreat, right? That's
You
something
can
that
do, yeah, they have retreats.
Mhm,
You can visit for a week, 3
mhm.
months. Um, I think they also have a year. Have you either of you heard of Makeda Wisdom? No, I have not. Who is Makeda Wisdom?
Share a little bit more, John, if you would. Yeah. Um,
But
but
well,
I
as
want
John's saying that, but yeah, going to that, having someone sort of point that out to me, it let me know I wasn't crazy.
right.
Yeah, and also, that link with that generational link is very, very important in Buddhism. And so, on the one hand,
Yeah.
at least in Soka Gakkai,
Mhm,
you do chant a lot about healing and working with that family karma. But
mhm.
with Sister Chung Kong, it was the first time where she was like, "Look, this is what's going on." She's a little bit she calls it like it is. And also what happened is that you go into the room and thank you, sister, for seeing me. And it was a one-on-one. And then when she asked
Nice.
me where I was from, and I said,
Mhm.
I'm from Memphis, she was like, she had been there. She had been to Memphis. She knew, yeah, she knew.
Wow.
And so it was so good to have someone knowing, look,
Mhm,
I am very much familiar with where you were born and raised.
mhm.
And also remember Dr. King and
Very
Thich Nhat Hanh were friends.
Right, right. A lot of people may not know that. And I just want to highly recommend Thich Nhat Hanh's books.
Mhm.
He writes very simply, right,
Yeah,
Rashonda?
I have bunches of them back here. Very simply, they're all back here. Um,
Yes.
and
Um,
go ahead.
well, I can't, I'm gonna, if I butcher or try to spell his name, but just if you Google will correct you. Thich Nhat Hanh, yes. So
Mhm.
didn't he nominate, or was it vice versa? Who nominated who for like a peace
It was
prize?
vice versa. Dr. King nominated Thich Nhat Hanh for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it was because Dr. King said he was inspired by
Mhm.
Thai's, use of
Of
nonviolence.
nonviolence, absolutely, because
Mhm.
again, they were and or coming out of also like the Vietnam War, and people just, that genocide and our country's actions over there, and
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
so, I mean, I think there was clearly a relationship there, and an understanding of
Right. Mhm.
suffering, of
Yes.
suffering and compassion.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Suffering and compassion. And so that
mhm,
that
kind of
sort of goes hand in hand. And so she was very
mhm,
much I mean, as
mhm,
soon as I said Memphis, she was like,
mhm,
you're from the South. Also, um, I'm all air signs. I'm very logical. I can be all up in my head and everything. And
mhm.
she was like, you know, this isn't this generational thing. This is something I know you're trying to find like a reason, but
Yeah.
here's your reason. This is
Right,
why you're
right.
feeling this way. This is
Mhm.
why, yeah, you are angry and you have a right to be angry. And
Right, right.
that's what that's what she was saying. It was like she said, you can acknowledge that anger, even
Yes.
though it's not quote unquote your personal anger.
Right,
It needs
right.
to be acknowledged, and
Right,
then
and
in terms of
worked
working
with.
with it and
Yeah.
worked with, and then in
Mhm,
terms of how you work with it,
mhm,
she said what I'm doing over here in Switzerland, how, learning the language. I have learned the language, at
mhm.
least German. I'm learning Italian now since I'm in the Italian section. Um, Being seen, going out and people see me and they hear me speaking the language. It's like, I can work on that generational anger that way and making sure they see me because, you know, our ancestors didn't go through what they went through for us to suffer and to hide
Mhm.
and just to say, "Oh, I'm in this trauma and in this." That
And to
doesn't
get stuck in
work.
it. Yeah, and to get
Yeah,
stuck
and
in
to get
it.
stuck in it and getting out there and saying, "Okay, I am here. I am learning your language,
Mhm.
and I, you're gonna have to deal with it." That's how you work with it. You
Mhm.
know?
Well, for some people. Now, some people are never gonna move, abroad, especially if it's a country that's very different. Not everyone will be able to do that or want to do that, but I think yes, we have the right to.
Yeah,
Right? To
yeah.
step in wherever and the respect of like any if I'm in, I don't care where I am in the world, if I'm gonna live there, I do think we should try to learn the language.
Right. But and
Right?
also what
Yeah.
the why I was saying it's about context. No, not
Mhm.
everyone is going to, not everybody wants to
Yeah. Yeah.
move from their country, and that's fine.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
it is about, working with what you have where you are.
Mhm.
It's
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
So and that's the point to,
Mhm. Mhm.
that's the point to make.
Well, and for me, I see it as freedom. And that's also why I wanted to have you on. It isn't about like Switzerland, because again, we touched on this, so I'll be open about it. It's not like Switzerland's this ideal place where people are going to throw their arms out necessarily for
No,
you or any country. Um,
no.
that it's more about the freedom, especially for Black women. But again, I want my channel. I'm mostly speaking to women, all
Mhm,
different,
mhm,
but
mhm.
for us, even as any woman, white woman, to it's new to be able to be up and like I'm gonna go live in this country or I'm gonna go, it's
I
that freedom is important
I
for
think that
me.
freedom, the freedom is important, but here's
Yeah.
the thing.
Mhm.
There are a couple of things.
Yeah.
The grass is always greener on the other side of the fence.
True.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and I'll show you something in just a second.
Okay.
The second thing is, if you are leaving a place, be it a country, a city, a house, whatever,
Hmm.
if you are running from something
Yes.
and you have not done any type of work or whatever, you don't want to turn around and face whatever it is that you are running from, it
Hmm.
will follow you.
Hmm. Hmm.
You are not going to run away from it if you move to Switzerland or the UK. If you think, "Oh, everything's going to be great when I get to
Yeah.
this
Or I'm
place or
gonna
that
go to
place,
I'm
and
gonna
I'm
go
not
to
going to have to deal
Ghana.
with anything."
I'm going to the continent. A lot of people like
They
everything's
go
gonna
to right, exactly. No, no, no. You're gonna get hit with so much. And this is why I have held many a hand of black American women over here because they get here thinking, oh, they're gonna love me, and
Oh,
it's like,
wow.
no, no.
Mhm.
They may love you if you're singing and dancing because you're entertainment.
Of
But
course.
try to get a job in marketing or try to get a job like, on quote unquote their level. That's when you
Mhm.
really find out,
Mhm.
you know,
Wow, yeah, that's very deep. That is very deep. So
you
that's,
know,
and you're talking specifically Switzerland at this point with that? Or no?
I mean, let me just say this. I can't speak for
Mhm.
all countries. And let me just go ahead and say, okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and speak for Switzerland. But there's
Mhm.
something when folks say they want to move to Europe, I tell
Mhm.
them, look at the political situation. Investigate the political situation where you want to
Yes,
move. And the
right.
reason is because I'm going to show you something. And pardon me
Mhm.
for this being ripped,
Mhm.
because when they put it in our mailbox, I was so pissed off that I
Oh my
ripped
goodness.
it.
Oh my
Now,
goodness. Stop Switzerland from the
It
10 million.
because 10 million immigrants coming in. Now, the
Mhm.
X that you see the people that got the X over.
Absolutely.
You
Yes,
see that.
yes.
Now, you see the green check marks. You see what they have there. This landed in our mailbox, what, a month ago?
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
that's why when people start talking about Switzerland it's great, it's wonderful. And I saw that you put up the picture of the Matterhorn, which is great, but
Mhm.
that's not reality. And
Mhm.
that's why I tell people, if you're coming over here to try to escape racism, honey, God bless you. Remember, this is a place where, folks came from to
Mhm.
go to the US, the people who were the religious extremists. They couldn't
Mhm.
hack it over here in Europe. They went over there to the US. But
Wow.
this is where, a lot of that stuff started. So don't, I try
Mhm.
to warn folks,
Mhm.
it is different. You don't
Mhm.
have like the in your face type racism here that you may have in the States, but you do have it. And it is different. I am a 5-minute drive from Italy, where the PM they elected, who is a woman. Let me just say
Mhm.
that a woman
Mhm.
is a fascist.
Mhm.
And All
Yes.
Out admitted was a member of the fascist party. She says she's not a member anymore, but
Right, right. Yeah.
whatever. But Europe is doing this slow kind of goose step march to the right.
Yes,
And
absolutely. I see it.
people need to be aware of that.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and there is a difference between the large towns like Zurich, like Lugano, and just like in the States, these small areas where
And
you
are
go.
you in a big city? Are you in a bigger city, or are you in a
I am about a maybe a 20-minute drive outside of Lugano now. I was in Zurich for 20 some odd years, and then we moved down here.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So do you see a shift in attitudes moving to like a smaller area?
Well, I mean, this area it's not small because Lugano is smaller
Mhm.
than Zurich, but it's still a business town, But
Okay.
Zurich is like the financial capital.
Sure, sure.
I will say that the Italian influence, people are, and again, this is just my opinion. I'm going to flash opinion.
Mhm.
In the Italian section, people are quote unquote nicer. They are more understanding that I am trying to learn the language. So I will say that. But on the other hand, this came in our mailbox, from a
Right.
political party. And remember, we just had the elections where the right wing, the ultra right wing, well, not ultra, because they got one that's worse, but, you know, they, I believe they have the majority in the parliament, you
Oh, the
know.
ultra right wing right now.
Well, they've got I'm saying, because you got ultra like,
Yeah, no, I got you.
what?
There's one
And then
beyond that. The
yeah,
one
so you've got, the
coming
right
up late.
wingers. Yeah, the right wingers have, a majority in the parliament.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
there's a difference, I will say, in the personal level. Zurich is a fast financial
Mhm.
capital.
Mhm.
Um, and when I was learning German there, people were not as patient. Let me just say that. Not everyone, you do have some nice people there, and they knew I was trying to learn it.
Mhm.
Um, but here it's almost like they're happy that I'm trying to, especially with me being an American. It's like, you're
Right,
an
right.
American.
because
and
that's
you're learning a
unusual.
language.
Absolutely
Wow.
unusual. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So, but in terms of the racism, as you know,
Mhm,
Silverhead
mhm,
Fitness said,
mhm.
there are some levels of racism everywhere. In what I have experienced here in Switzerland, in some cases, it's a little bit higher because when I got here, now it's different. But in 2001,
Mhm.
um, it was, I mean, you had people that I had things that happened to my folks back in the 50s
Oh,
because
wow.
they didn't
In
have,
America.
because they didn't have the reckoning. They didn't have enough black people here to even
Mhm.
have to
To think
face
about it.
anything. That's the thing, and
Right.
then, here come black folks and it's like, oh, who are you? Or, that type of thing. I mean, things that would shock you. Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
But
Is it
I
all bad? No. I mean, and again, it has gotten a lot better 22 years later. Yeah.
because you are staying there. I mean, that's my when I look at it, I'm like, but you're choosing to stay there. You're someone who could live in you have options. You probably could live in other countries and other places.
Depending on the country's laws. That's
Mhm.
the thing. That also, as Americans, we make a lot of assumptions that you can
Yes,
just pack up
yes,
and
deep on
move
that.
anywhere. I
Yes.
mean, for example, my husband is Danish.
Mhm.
Because of the laws that have happened there, and I'm going to mess it up too. I'm going to mess this up, but because of particular laws, because there was a right wing government in Denmark, there was some type of thing about Danish citizens bringing their non-Danish spouses up, and there's something that you have to go through. And the reason they did that is that you had,
Yes.
Danish citizens of Middle Eastern descent that they didn't want their, bring their
The
spouses
family.
up. Exactly, bringing their families up. So
Wow.
no, it's not like you can just up and move
Mhm,
anywhere. And that's the other
mhm.
thing I try to tell Americans. Another thing
That
is
you
that
have
here in Switzerland,
counsel.
let me just say this: coming
Mhm.
over and like Americans, we think we can just, come over here, find a job,
Yeah,
stay
that's a
there.
very common that can-do attitude that we
That
have.
can do
It's
attitude.
naive.
And then when they get over here, they get surprised because number one,
They don't speak the
you can stay
language.
here for 3 months. You can stay here for 3 months and you got to
Right.
go if you don't have a permit. The other thing is, even in terms of finding a job, there are three levels. There are
Mhm.
three levels of job, like, I guess, candidates or seekers or people
Mhm.
who qualify for a job. First, you've got the Swiss. That's level one. So if someone
Mhm.
is hiring for a position, they got to look at a Swiss person first.
Okay, yes.
Okay. If they can't find anybody like a Swiss person is qualified,
To do
that
it.
next level, EU.
Yes.
Wait,
Okay.
okay. So the next level is EU. If they can't find
Mhm.
anyone, from the EU that fits that position, then you go to that third level. All right. That's
Mhm.
where you got, the Latin American countries, the African countries, and
Yes.
USA.
Mhm.
We're in that level with everyone else. And folks get
Mhm.
shocked when I tell them that. So it's not as easy as just like you're going to come over here and find a job. It's like you
Right.
already have to have the offer or something
Yes.
when you come over here. Yeah.
Right, right.
Mhm, mhm,
Um, well, thank you for sharing that, though, I'm not a I watch a lot of live abroad channels because as some of the folks like someone asked me if I've moved yet.
mhm,
But that they all say that like Americans, again, of all maybe even more so white Americans, I'm not sure, but
mhm.
have this because we see it. Well, I'm moving to France. We just think,
Yep,
and because it is a good passport now
it is a good
compared to many
passport.
other. But it's not the top. I mean, do you know what number we are?
I can't remember, but it's not. But you know what? The other thing is,
Mhm.
um, you
Yes, this is
know,
part-time. Okay.
these I don't mean to be, if anybody out there is running like a platform, an expat platform or whatever, my apologies. But sometimes you have people that don't tell you the entire story
Of
because they
course.
got to sell that hope and they got to get those clicks. They
Oh,
got to get the
absolutely.
clicks on the story. So if they tell you, all the difficulties or whatever, you're not going to click on that story.
Right.
They're not going to tell you that you have, if you do come over here, at least I think in France and I know here in Switzerland, if you don't have a job and you want to come up over here, you have to prove to them that
Absolutely.
to you have to have enough money to take care of yourself, that you don't get over here and ask for public assistance.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
what they mean by enough money, they're talking about millions.
Well, in Switzerland, now Switzerland is quite harsh.
Switzerland is good, right? But
You know,
even I want to say I'm not sure about France, but
mm,
it's like in Italy, you still have to make you still have to prove that you can take care of yourself.
oh, absolutely. Right.
Yeah,
Yes, yes. Because they're not jobs sitting there waiting because these country, a lot of these, but like you said, they want to employ their own nationals first, which
right.
makes sense.
Which
Uh,
makes sense. Yeah.
it totally makes sense. Yeah, yeah. But no, I think Switzerland would be way down on the list of places that, in terms of ease of moving to, honestly, which is partly why I did want to, interview you because were able to successfully do that and you're choosing to continue there despite, as you said, there's racism around the world. In fact, we could talk about sometimes folks go to Africa and they're still treated, there's still a lot there. There's still a lot
Yes.
going on
Mhm.
versus, a white tourist versus a black tourist. And then it's not necessarily like, oh, my brother or my sister. I mean, there
Right.
can be that, but there's a lot of economic and cultural differences. So it's, yeah. It's, which is why we have to talk about the mental health.
Yeah.
Having, I'm really looking at maybe helping others who do move and to get a meditation practice and just get wellness practices for that period where they're trying to, they're landing in the country for maybe that
Uh-huh.
first year,
It's
you know.
difficult. I think it is very good to have a meditation practice. It is
Mhm.
I mean, you have to have something to keep yourself balanced because the thing is
Absolutely.
stress
Yes.
stress is going to happen. It's going to happen. It's a part of life. And you can either freak out over it and say, "Oh my god," or whatever, or you can, get your toolkit ready,
Hmm.
get your spiritual toolkit ready, or however life toolkit, however way you want to call it, to where you can, kind of roll with it, or at least have it in your mind that this too shall pass.
Hmm.
You
Which
know,
is back to the change, which is a constant, which
yeah.
Buddhism especially really emphasizes. Not all. Do you actually, now this may be controversial. This is my own question. Do you consider Buddhism a religion or a philosophy? Because some people in the West still sort of. What do you think? Or can it be both? And again,
I
depending on.
think it can be both, and
Yes.
whatever fits the person. Some people need to call it a religion, and that's
Mhm,
fine, you
mhm.
know. Um,
But some people need to call it a philosophy or they can't
right,
engage.
right.
Also, right?
People need, and I think it is up to the person. For
Mhm.
me, it depends on the day. It really, I mean, really,
So you're pragmatic. Okay.
yeah, I mean, because when I first started out, yeah, I called it a religion, but then we had some, you know, I mean, there were some folks chanting that still went to church. I was like,
And
"Oh,
and
okay."
and that's, yeah, and that's fine,
And and actually you can, and that works. I was like, "Okay."
Mhm,
And
mhm.
yeah, I think it just depends on what works for you.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree, but I
Mhm.
mean, not everybody can, that flexibility might not work for everyone. As you said, for some people it may serve them as well. It's a philosophy in that way. Yes, they're Boo Jews, Jewish people who are
Yeah,
Buddhists. In fact, in the tradition I practice, a lot of the teachers are actually are Jewish, like,
right.
but they're Buddhist, but they're not. There's not a contradiction for them.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
um,
And Tina Turner called herself a Buddhist Christian, so yeah,
mhm.
yeah. Mhm.
I think that, especially for the Black community, I do think that that's something. I might be getting into a tricky area here, but that's also part of why I was drawn to you because I just feel that we can open our minds a little bit more. I know just in some areas of the Black community in America, anything that's not biblical Christian is looked
Right,
upon, is just labeled as,
right,
is
right,
just
yeah. Mhm.
demonic. And I mean, and of course that's been happening for centuries, that sort of the literal demonization you know, of other people's beliefs.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I would just love for us to be able to open a little, like I always give this example. You may think it's a terrible example. I hope it's not, but this
Mhm.
is what I say. I go in a Chinese restaurant, eat Chinese food. I'm not Chinese because I ate the food. I enjoyed the
Mhm.
food. I may eat that every day. I'm still not Chinese. Right?
You know,
It's our
I mean,
essence.
yeah, I get that. I
Yeah.
think for me, it's when you boil mostly all philosophies like Buddhism or Islam or whatever, all the way down, it's more about love. It is about respect.
Mhm.
You know, it's about these really basic things. Now, when you start questioning and this and is it that or whatever, it to me it starts. It's like, what of it? Okay, if I say it's a religion, then what? If I say it's a philosophy, then what? Do I get a cookie? You know, I
Right.
mean, it's like, okay, what does it give you? If it gives you something to call it a religion, then okay, call it a religion. If it gives you something to call it a philosophy, great, do that. But that's on you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
No, I agree. But I mean,
Hmm.
I just, as you know, that's a question that many folks have, and it does have significance for them, and it can start. So that's
Yeah.
why I totally agree with you. It starts this mental chatter, and it can start warring.
Yeah.
So I totally
Exactly. That's what it starts that chatter going, and it's like,
Yeah,
you
which
know.
isn't what it's about. So I hear you. I totally hear you on that. Just to clarify for
Hmm.
folks, I completely agree with you and hear you on that. It's just
Hmm.
because then we're fighting about definitions and what was the and so I put up John's comment here, and and everybody is entitled to an opinion. So
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
But as we can see, it's often religion is the basis for a lot of human conflict,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
and living through that. So I agree that it's just like to kind of step back from some of the labels and again back into the present moment
Hmm.
and our humanity. So I want to thank you so much.
You're welcome.
John's adding one more thing, and
Yeah.
the five
Yeah.
spiritual powers plus
Plus
one.
one, Thich Nhat Hanh. Okay.
I'm not familiar with
I'm not
that.
familiar with that. Yeah.
I don't know.
John, you got us.
Hmm?
John got us because I haven't heard of that one. The five spiritual powers plus one. I have to look that up. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's something that he's putting together or yeah. But I just want to thank you so much. I feel like there were so many things I could excerpt and try to do some short videos on. So much of what you said in totally different directions, whether
Hmm.
moving abroad and not just
Hmm.
having this fantasy, which real quick, I understand though, I have to address it. I understand why a lot of Black women would have this fantasy of a utopia somewhere else. Don't you? Do you know what I mean? It's because there's this real desire for a place where you feel like you're going to feel safer, you're going to be welcomed and treated, it's so yeah, it's almost a desire for a utopia
But
or
that's
better.
utopia.
Yeah,
Utopia does not exist.
yeah, yeah,
You know, it's about
yeah,
the here and now.
yeah. And I feel like it's oh, it's she says it's all tick.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
I'll look that up. Thank you,
yeah,
John, because
yeah.
I'll check that out.
And
One thing I need to acknowledge what
yeah,
Silverhead Fitness said, if
yeah.
you are, in terms of moving to another country, please
Mhm,
get to know the people that live there.
mhm. Oh
Know
yes, I put up
someone.
her
She
comment.
said, or they said maybe, yeah, do your homework before moving. May be helpful to personally know some people who live there.
I always think that's important. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, and many of the channels that I watch, and predominantly Black women moving abroad, they do first they get in a Facebook group, they do sort of lay some groundwork, they do
Mhm.
a scouting trip. So yeah, I
Mhm.
mean,
Exactly.
even
Do a
going,
scouting
yeah.
trip.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do a scouting trip. Yeah, I would do that just to, you know, see. But sometimes, because I had been to Switzerland before I moved here,
Mhm.
and yeah, try to stay as long as you can within the realm of the law, so you can get a
Right.
sense of what's going on. Yeah.
Right, right. And I
Mhm.
do hear you that you said, and you had told me off camera too that, you've had to sort of counsel or be there for women who got
Mhm.
to Switzerland and were can I ask you, did many of them return back to the US or what was the outcome in a lot of the cases?
Some returned to the US.
Some did, yes.
There's some that, you know, divorced. There are some I know, like some women I worked with, and you know, they came over here, got transferred over here, thinking that the world would be their oyster, and you know, didn't realize, you know, like what the hell, or why are they saying this to me, and is that legal? It's like, yeah, yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah. So it's a it runs the gamut.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
yeah. Yeah, and I hate to say it, but yeah, you get a lot of folks that'll come
Right.
here and they believe the press of Switzerland. They believe the neutrality and all of this. Like,
Right, right, right. Yeah, that neutrality may be in very specific things. So anyway,
yeah,
thank you so, so much.
you're
Now her
welcome.
links will be below, her website and the link to her book. And then you can find all the other connections through her website, uh,
Yes.
Stay Woke Tarot. Thanks so
Hmm.
much for your time. It was a
You're
lovely
welcome.
conversation. It helped me. And again, yeah, I just think it's important that we're seen and working with tarot as well as just living abroad and successfully doing it. So thank you so so much. So hang on a moment, and I'm gonna just end the stream. Bye guys. I'll see you with a video in the middle of the week. Thank you again, Rashunda.